And we're going to be starting the webinar just momentarily.
Thank you, Michelle. So I'd like to welcome everyone to our webinar. Let me switch this. There we go. Okay, so in this webinar, we are going to discuss the various types of assessment that are available with the Connecticut State Department of Education, focusing on the Smarter Balance Assessment, the Interim Assessments for English, Language Arts, and Literacy, and Mathematics. So in the next hour, we're going to explain to you how the interim assessments are administered, how they're scored, how they're reported, how you can actually look at all of the interim assessments without beginning a student session. We're going to offer considerations prior to the use of the interim assessment blocks, and we're going to share just a few of the numerous resources available to you for using the interims on both the State Department of Ed and the Smarter Balance websites. And the questions can be posted as we move through using the chat box or the Q&A. A lot of the questions that we'll receive at the end will probably be answered by the time we get to the end, but we will try and address them all. So first we're going to talk about the purposes of the variety of assessments that are available within the Smarter Balance assessment system. And the benefit to using a system of assessments is that the emphasis isn't placed on one component, like the summative. With the implementation of the Smarter Balance assessments, we can take full advantage of a comprehensive assessment system that promotes both interim and formative measures that offer teachers a variety of tools that make direct connections between the Connecticut core standards and groups of focus skills. These systems can enhance high-quality classroom instruction with the incorporation of tools that support student learning. So when we want to talk about the purposes for each assessment, we really need to talk about what these assessments are not. The assessments, the summative assessments specifically, are not a tool that inform daily classroom instruction, and they are not meant to be diagnostic measures of individual student strengths and weaknesses. Rather, they're a way to estimate overall performance in a grade level appropriate subject area and to make valid interpretations of student achievement and progress. Furthermore, summative assessments should not be the only tool used to interpret student achievement. The summative results that you've received should be used to inform federal or state reporting, district or school accountability, and program evaluation or identification at the school, state, or district level. The interim assessments, the focus of this presentation, are given periodically, usually a few times a year. That decision is yours. They are a valuable measure of domain-level performance, such as reading informational text or focusing on a specific mathematical concept, such as statistics and probability. These short assessments help teachers evaluate student learning and are useful at the grade or classroom level. The formative process is used by both teachers and students during instruction to adjust teaching based on feedback and to allow students to know what they need to do to close their own learning gap. The formative assessment process is not standardized and is embedded in the learning throughout the school year. So what are the interim assessments? The interim assessments are just one part of a comprehensive assessment system. This resource is free, and more importantly, it's optional. As we present information on this valuable tool, we want you to think about how this might support your teaching. We're not advocating for additional testing. We want everyone to have a clear and purposeful reason for including these in their professional development or within their classroom, and you'll hear us say this multiple times throughout the presentation. During this presentation, we want you to think about what you might get if you utilize these tools. So the quick answer to what are the interims is the interims are a way to check student progress and to gather information about learning that can alter the instruction provided. Interims offer flexibility, and both the math and ELA interims can be used for professional development or in a class with students in a variety of ways. The State Department of Education is not dictating if or when you use the interims, but we will caution you to keep in mind the purposes and appropriate uses of these assessments. As we begin our discussion of the interim assessments, keep in mind that items were not developed exclusively for the summative or for the interim, but all items were developed with the expectation that they could be used on either an interim or a summative assessment. Any items that made it through the process and into the interim pool were then available for use on the practice test, summative tests, training tests, and the interims. Like the summative assessment, the interims are delivered on a computer using the test administrator and student interface, and we'll discuss this in more detail shortly. Smarter Balance assessments, including the interims, are predicated on the fact that they measure assessment targets that align to the Connecticut core standards. Within each target, we have a variety of item types to elicit specific skills at differing levels of difficulty. In developing these interim assessments, we included a variety of item types across assessment targets and difficulty levels. Unlike the summative, the interim assessments are currently not adaptive. However, as additional items are added to the interim assessment item bank, interim assessments may have the capability of becoming adaptive. The interims benefit both students and teachers, so let's begin with how they benefit students. It allows them a chance to practice on a subset of grade-level appropriate focus skills in math and ELA using an online platform, the same platform they'll see when they take the assessment, the summative assessment. The interim blocks include all types of items that are used on the summative assessments. Many of these items are interactive and contain built-in tools such as highlighters, notes, or calculators. And because the interims are connected to TIDE, students who are eligible for accommodations during the summative assessments will have access to those tools as well as any universal tools available to all students. But those accommodations must be put into the TIDE system prior to delivering the interim assessments, and we're going to talk about that in a few minutes as well. The exposure to the expectations within the system is important, and if you opt not to use the interims, we suggest that at least you provide the practice and training tests prior to the administration of the summative assessments. While most items on the interim assessments are scored by the computer, for example, a traditional multiple choice or correct multiple choice, constructed responses and performance tasks must be scored by trained teachers. Performance tasks for mathematics and ELA challenge students to apply their knowledge and skills to respond to complex real-world problems. They consist of collections of questions and activities that are connected to a single theme or scenario and measure capacities such as depth of understanding and ability to apply complex analysis, which cannot be adequately assessed with traditional assessment questions. As we discuss the interim assessments, keep in mind that they allow for a level of flexibility that other assessments don't. They can be used for professional development or as a pre- or post-assessment, especially in the future as more items are embedded into the system. Teachers can choose only one item, such as a brief write or a math performance task, and model appropriate responses in the classroom. They can support the teaching of specific skills or simply allow for exposure to item types in an online testing situation. For teachers, interims provide a snapshot of their students' abilities in a specific skill area. There's a menu of interim assessments available across all grades. While some interims are comprehensive and mirror the summative, other interims are brief and measure a focused set of skills. Results can be used to identify strengths and weaknesses, both at the individual or group level, and help inform next steps for supporting student learning. This can lead to collaborative conversations about teaching within and even across grades. For instance, perhaps a grade 4 class is struggling with a mathematical skill. Since the mathematics standards are built on progressions, this may be because they missed something in grade 3. In addition, since the topics are divided into blocks containing grade-appropriate skills, teachers can see a natural fit of the blocks within the curriculum. There are two types of interim assessments: the Interim Comprehensive Assessment, or ICA, and the Interim Assessment Blocks, or IABs. Both are available at all tested grades, but their use is flexible. Teachers may administer interims out of grade level as deemed appropriate, and both are currently available only as fixed form tests, which means neither are adaptive. Students taking the same block or comprehensive for a particular grade will see the same items. Therefore, we caution against multiple administrations of the same interim to the same students. This is a drawback to fixed form tests. There's only one test available. So if the teacher wants to use a block as a pre and a post-test, the students would be administered the same exact items twice. Overexposure to stimuli and items within a block may influence student performance and require a much more careful interpretation of data. Let's look more in depth at each of these interim assessment types and their purposes. The comprehensive assessments. These are not intended to be administered to every student and are the equivalent of our summative assessment. The purpose for a comprehensive assessment is to provide a snapshot of student performance when the summative results are not available, such as a new student who just moved to Connecticut from another state where the standards or assessments are not aligned to the Common Core. It would be inappropriate to use this on students on a regular basis across a grade level. They're not intended to be administered beyond an out-of-state student or a student who is moving out of grade level. What we'd like to caution you, because you get the same exact results that you would on a summative assessment, you're not getting any more information than that, we're suggesting that you contact our office if you intend to use the comprehensive assessment for any reason, and we'll walk you through it. So due to the limited uses of the comprehensive assessments, we're going to focus the remaining time in this presentation on the purposes and benefits of the blocks, the interim assessment blocks, or IABs. These are mini assessments measuring a subset of focus skills. The math blocks contain between 13 and 15 items, while the ELA blocks include between 6 and 18 items. Teachers can select from a menu of blocks and determine those that best align to classroom instruction at any point during the school year. The use or administration of these blocks can reinforce skills that are being introduced by the teacher or assess skills that students should exhibit based on learning and mastery of such concepts. For example, a teacher might administer the grade 3 interim block on fractions following the completion of a curriculum unit on fractions. Results can be used to determine the proficiency of skills at the individual and the classroom level. To better understand the structure and the design of the interim assessment blocks, we're now going to look more closely at the specific blocks by content area. In ELA, blocks are designed to measure reading comprehension of literary and informational text, writing, listening, and research. As you can see from the blueprint, there are 2 reading blocks with a focus on literary and informational text. There are several writing blocks: the revision, editing, and language and vocabulary use are available in grades 3 through 7 and high school, while the Edit Revise block measures a combination of revision, editing, and language and vocabulary use in grade 8. We anticipate that next year, grade 8 will share those other 3 blocks. Research, although not a new block for the interim assessments, was supplemented with more items this past year, and now each of those include 18 items. Each grade has one performance task in either opinion argumentative writing, informational explanatory writing, or narrative. Remember that this PT block is the same one used for the comprehensive assessment, if you do use that, and all except for grade 11 are the same exact performance tasks as last year. The interim assessment blocks for mathematics have been updated this year. A group of math educators reviewed the blocks and made recommendations on how to improve them. In order to appropriately address the critical areas in the grade, 11 new blocks were added that measure the following domains: number and operations in base 10, measurement and data, geometry, operations and algebraic thinking, the number system, statistics and probability, and expressions and equations. In addition to the new blocks, 16 blocks were revised. This was done for a variety of reasons, including making the level of difficulty within a block more diverse, broadening the item types within a block, and ensuring the targets addressed within the block better align to the priority and supporting clusters for Claim 1. In total, 186 new items have been added to the interims. Math blocks assess specific concepts. These concepts are directly related to the domains at each level. And these are the blocks for high school. Again, those blocks listed with 1 asterisk are new this year, and those with 2 have been revised. Currently, all mathematics online items are machine scored along with some performance task items. The only hand-scored items are in the performance task for mathematics. Math machine-scored items include traditional multiple choice, multi-correct answer multiple choice, hot text, grid, fill-in, and equation numeric. We'll now discuss how to administer these assessments. But before we show you how to administer a test, we want to give you a reminder. We can't stress enough throughout this presentation that everyone needs to have a very clear purpose prior to administering these assessments. These are optional, as we noted in the initial slides, so think about what you might do with the information you receive from these tests before opting to incorporate them into your curriculum. Interim assessments are located on the Connecticut portal, and you can see the address up at the top here. From the portal, you choose the Smarter Balance button on the left side of the page. This gives you access to systems associated with Smarter Balance, including but not limited to the digital library, our reporting systems, test manuals, and additional resources. Prior to the administration of the interim assessments, designated supports for all students and test supports and/or accommodations for special education, 504, and EL students must be updated in TIDE for this school year, so they don't carry over from last year to this year. Designated supports are available to all students and can be selected by the teacher or teachers who work most closely with a student. The designated supports are based on the type of supports they may already receive in the classroom. An example of these supports might be color contrast on the screen or text-to-speech for math items. test supports and/or accommodations are only available to special ed students with an IEP and 504 students. Select the appropriate accommodations for these students based on the 2016-17 Test Supports Accommodations Form and Comparison Chart available on the State Department of Ed Accommodations page. A detailed explanation of this process is available in the TIDE user manual on the Connecticut portal that we just showed you. The Office of Student Assessment will provide more information regarding the submission of test supports and accommodations in the upcoming week. Another step that needs to be completed by a teacher prior to administering any interim blocks is to prepare a roster of students who are going to take the interims. In order to prepare the roster, you have to have a TIDE account. All students who are eligible to test are listed in TIDE, including the supports and accommodations for which they're eligible that we just showed you how to enter. Page 34 of the TIDE user guide, which can be found in the section entitled Manuals for Online Testing, has detailed information on how to do this. Once you're in TIDE, you'll see a section entitled Preparing for Testing on the left with a tab for rosters that shows you how to upload or alter class rosters. And as you can see, I don't know if anyone remembers the old TIDE screens, but this is a much simpler homepage schema. Once the roster is prepared, the next step that must be completed is to download the secure browser so students can take the assessment. Information about this download can be found on the front page of the portal on the right side under Secure Browsers. Again, the entry of designated supports and accommodation and the creation of rosters, as well as the downloading of this browser, must be completed prior to administering the interim assessments. Now that we've completed these steps, you're ready to administer the interim assessments. All the interim assessments are assessed through the test administration section of the assessment portal. Using the same secure test administration interface as the Smarter Balanced Summative Assessments, teachers will then select the most appropriate interim assessment from the menu. Once the test administration site has been accessed, you'll be presented with a menu tree. Remember to choose the interim assessment blocks that you're interested in administering. After selecting the grade or grades of choice, the user will have an option of choosing a content area, either ELA or mathematics. Once the content area is selected, the user will be prompted to select either a comprehensive assessment or a block. For illustrative purposes, we might choose a block, grade 3, reading literary text. To start the test, the user would select Start Session at the bottom of this box and approve students, and there's a monitoring process that goes on the screen while you're giving this to students. Step-by-step instructions are available in two places. You can look in the TA user guide or the interim assessment user guide, and both of those are available on the portal as well.
We're now going to take some time to discuss how interim assessments are scored. The Teacher Hand Scoring System, THSS, is the one platform that supports the scoring of the interim assessments. It is accessed on the Connecticut Assessment Portal with a TIDE username and password, and provides teacher access to open-ended student responses in the ancillary scoring rubrics and training guides that are associated with those specific items. The first step prior to accessing interim results is to determine if the administered block contains items that are machine-scored only, a combination of machine-scored and hand-scored items, or solely hand-scored items such as the Writing Brief Write blocks. Access to data via the AIRways reporting system will be dependent on the types of items comprised within the block, For example, blocks that are entirely machine scored will yield immediate results available through AIRways. However, blocks containing open-ended items will require teacher training for hand scoring and the actual scoring of these items using the teacher hand scoring system before the data is available for that particular block in AIRways. We will discuss this in more detail shortly. For now, let's review the process for scoring open-ended responses. The teacher hand scoring system contains all interim assessment items completed by students that require hand scoring. Designated teachers or hand scorers will use the THSS to access these items and all the scoring material associated with the items, such as the scoring rubrics and training guides. As long as the teachers are trained on the items, scoring may be assigned to the primary teacher or other teachers as appropriate. This may be one consideration to minimize the potential of bias or subjectivity. Ultimately, scoring assignments are based on the discretion of the school or district administrator. After teachers have reviewed the training materials, they will use the THSS to access the student's response and submit the appropriate score. We will now take a few moments to show you how to access and score student responses. When you first log into the THSS, you will see all of the responses waiting to be scored. These can be sorted by student name, by item number and title, session, or status. You will choose the responses you would like to score and then click on the Score button. Scorers and administrators can sort by tests and then, with the appropriate permissions, and assign scores to specific items. As a reminder, as long as the teachers are trained on the items, scoring may be assigned to various teachers. When you choose the Score option on the right, you will first see the rubric associated with the item, and then below that, the question and the student's response. The item stem and the student's response below the rubric look like this. One place you can access the exemplar set and the training guide is above the rubric for the specific item you are scoring. The THSS gives the scorer access to a training guide which contains directions for using the materials, a stimulus or stimuli if appropriate, the item stem, a rubric, condition codes, and lastly, a chart of the grade level claim and target that corresponds to the item. The exemplar sets are the same as those provided last year. Each contains annotated and scored student responses for a given item, a check set with annotations, and an answer key. Hand scoring materials are also available in TIDE, which provides access to the training materials without having to administer an interim assessment block. These training materials can be downloaded or exported for more convenient access. From the Connecticut Assessment Portal, select the TIDE card and select the General Resources tab located on the top header. Choose the drop-down menu and select the Teacher Hand Scoring material. From the Connecticut Assessment Portal, select the TIDE card and select the General Resources tab located on the top header. Choose the drop-down menu and select the Teacher Hand Scoring material. Interim assessment reports are available on the online reporting system and AIRways. While interim comprehensive assessment reporting is similar to the summative, with information available by student, grade, school, and district, these reports only indicate the overall scale score for ELA and math with a corresponding achievement level and within each claim, the classification of below, at or near, or above standard. You will, in short, receive no more information on the ICA than you will for the summative assessment. The interim assessment blocks, however, offer reporting by student, class, grade, school, and district, but also by block and by target. You can view a single student's response to each item on the block and compare that response with average response of the class on the same item. As mentioned, we have two reporting systems currently available. The first is the one you are most familiar with, the Online Reporting System, or ORS. This is the same system that you use to access summative score reports. Users of the ORS will still be able to access individual student reports for the interim assessments, but the system will not have access to the item-level detailed information that is available in the new AIRways system. As mentioned, AIRways is our new reporting system designed to provide detailed, item-level student performance reports for interim assessments. AIRways consists of a dashboard page and various assessment reports. Assessment reports are available at various levels within a district. Access to each assessment report depends on your user role. The dashboard is the landing page for the AIRways users. This page displays the sorting options available. If you chose to start within a column, click on the name. Users can find data by assessment name, such as the interim assessment block, grade 3 editing block. If I click on that underlying name, I gain access to an incredible amount of information. Our next screen will provide specific examples of that information. Next, I have a column entitled Test Reason, which is a category the user assigns to a test opportunity, such as spring interim or fall pretest. If no test reason was assigned to the opportunity, this column displays unassigned, which is what you see on this slide. The dashboard also lets you know the number of students who completed the assessment, and that can be found in the student column. Average scores are the sum of the assessment scores for all your students divided by the student count, or if you should administer an ICA, it will show the scale score. Performance distribution breaks down the percentage of your students who performed at each performance level. Lastly, you can also review tests by the most recent date on which one of your students completed the assessment. I simply click on the underlying assessment to choose a block in the assessment name column to review. I chose the grade 3 editing block. This table provides a list of every student who took the assessment block, their student ID, and their performance score overall on that block. What I love about this table is that it begins by showing me what everyone did as a group, and then I'm able to see where students fell in relation to the whole group. I can also opt to click on the student's name, and I will see how they specifically did on this assessment block. I will present that example momentarily, but the information is not the end of what is available on this screen. By clicking on the variety of colored vertical bars, I can view the 5 items on which students performed the best and the worst. I see the item number, the maximum points possible, an average of how everyone did on that item, and how each student in this group did on that specific item. I can also get more detailed information just by clicking on the blue item number in the row with a student's name. For example, item 5 for the second child on the list. So by clicking on the blue item number in the same row as the student's name, I can see the metadata for that item, such as the difficulty level and the target to which it aligns. I can also see the item and the answer key, plus the student's response. The other option is to choose one student from the list and click on their name. The screen then provides a detailed chart on how the child did on a chosen block and how everyone else did in comparison. It also provides you with performance information for that child. In the interest of time, we are going to have a separate webinar on features and the possible uses of the AIRways system. but we encourage you to visit the site as interim data begins populating. It is easy to navigate and provides detailed and useful information that can directly impact your instruction. We're now going to take a moment to show you how you can view the interim assessments. The Assessment Viewing Application, or AVA, is available on the assessment portal and can be accessed with a tied username and password. AVA provides teacher access to view interim assessment blocks for math and ELA as students see them when taking the tests. AVA might be used to review items on which a student struggled. Teachers can also use an item to demonstrate a skill they are teaching, such as writing an introduction. The item can be shown to all students on the whiteboard, and the teacher can model how an introduction might be written or how a paragraph could be edited. These items on AVA can also be a valuable part of professional development. Teachers might work through difficult items and incorporate them into their PD to prepare for their assessments, to better understand the expectations, or to see how their curriculum aligns to what is being measured. We encourage you to review the new blocks to determine where they best fit into your curriculum and how the assessment blocks can be used to support student learning.
One of the benefits of the interim assessments is to provide teachers and students with an additional resource that measures students' strengths and weaknesses when assessed on specific content and skills aligned to the Connecticut core standards throughout the school year. The incorporation of these tools can enhance the learning in classrooms as well as support professional development. Remember that these can be used out of grade. Keep in mind that to do so requires you to adjust the grade in TIDE, but teachers really need a clear purpose as to why an out-of-grade level interim is appropriate. Hand scoring and analyzing the results of performance-based student assessments allow teachers to learn more about the standards, their students, and their teaching practice. And unlike last year, once teachers score materials in the teacher hand scoring system, they will always be available in AIRways, so they're not disappearing after they've been scored. All of these features are part of the system, the summative and formative measures, and a connection to the Smarter Balance digital library. Though there are many benefits to using this system, we do need to keep in mind that there are certain limitations. For example, there's an overlap of items, including the shared performance task in each grade. And though the expectation is that new items will be embedded over time to make it a more robust system, we still need to wait for that. Another limitation is that the interims are not adaptive. Therefore, be mindful to overexposure of these tests. Finally, these assessments should not be used for test prep or to take the place of best practices and instruction in the classroom. And the Smarter Balance hand scoring training materials that are available to you, although they're classified as non-secure, non-public, these materials, including the items, the stimuli, and the student responses, cannot be posted publicly, reproduced for commercial purposes, or sold. So we have a number of resources available to you. They're all on the Connecticut portal. All of these have been highlighted throughout with a small yellow notepad in the right corner of the screen as we're moving through this. For information about student and user management, how to open a roster or to deal with appeals, you should see the TIDE user guide. For information about any online tests, look at the test administration user guide. If you need help with hand scoring questions, you can see the teacher hand scoring system user guide. And for information about network, internet, or software requirements, try the technical specifications manual for online testing. There are a variety of resources on our Connecticut State Department of Ed webpage and the Smarter Balance webpage. You can also learn more by going to the Comprehensive Assessment portal that we showed you. There's a section for manuals and resources. On our student assessment page, you can find the student assessment newsletter. You can sign up to have that sent to you on a regular basis, and you'll receive all of our updates. And that is the link to the student assessment webpage. Just a reminder that AIR is presenting a webinar on the 9th of November, so this Wednesday, on the use of the new AIRways system. You can find the information for that on the front page of our portal, and you can go there to register. If you have any questions or concerns, please don't hesitate to contact us. This is Deirdre and my information, and Jennifer Michalek, who is the mathematics consultant. She is doing the interim webinar series on the math, using the math blocks in another week. So now we're going to address any unanswered questions that were posted. So if you have any questions and you've not posted them, feel free to post them now.
Okay, Christy, we had a couple, Christy and Deirdre, we have a couple of questions that would be, I think, worth talking about. One is from Sarah, and that's once we set accommodations for students for interim assessments, are they all set for the Smarter Balance Summative?
Yes. Actually, the good news is that once you go in and manually upload that information now to use for your interims, they will carry over to this year's summative assessment. So the students will have access to all of their accommodations in the interim and the summative. But they have to be done every single school year at the beginning of the year.
Okay, and then we had another question about scoring online. If the teachers score online, once the teachers hand score, can they go back and see the student work again afterwards?
Yes, that actually is one of the features that we're really excited about for AIRways. Last year, originally, people who might have used this system remember that once you scored something in the teacher hand scoring system, you never had access to it again. AIRways holds all of the open-ended items, all of the items, period, open-ended or not. All of that information is saved by the student, by the class, by the assessment in that system, and you can go back at any point and revisit those, which is really beneficial for teachers who would like to look at the writing answers. I think that's a very important point for us.
Okay, we have a question from Eric. I just want to clarify, do students need to be in TIED to take the interims or only to ensure that they receive appropriate accommodations?
Okay, yes. Anybody, if a student is not in TIED, which is uploaded from PSIS, then they're not eligible to take the assessments, the interim or the summative. So the only students that are in TIED are those who are in grades 3 through 8 and 11 that are available to take the assessments. You can use out of grade, but you can't give a second grade or a third grade assessment.
Thank you. Okay, we have another question from Jennifer. If a student takes a math IAB multiple times, will both test results be available?
Yes, but we just want to caution that by giving a student a block that may have 10 or 12 or 15 items in it for math, they will take the exact same test, so nothing changes, and they're very short. You're looking at maybe 30 minutes or 45 minutes for a block, so we just want to caution you that you don't want to give them the same block multiple times, but yes, no matter how many times they take an assessment, it will stay in AIRways.
Thank you. So remember, if you have any questions, please type them into the Q&A feature. And I want to remind everyone you will receive an email that has a link to the recorded webinar for this presentation. And Christy or Deirdre, is there anything else that will be contained in that email that everyone will receive? Besides the link to the recorded webinar. Okay. And it will also be posted on our CT Core Standards website as well.
Yes.
And we have one, oh, sorry, go on.
Nope, go ahead.
I have one more question. What are the options for grades 9 and 10 students with interims? And then there's a second part. Can we upload these, in quotes, no test year students into TIDES so that they can access interims?
So the answer to this question is yes, you can have your high school certainly participate in the interim assessments. And if you have any questions about how to conduct this, please let our office know. We can walk you through the process. We can also put you in touch with our consultants at AIR. But certainly these assessments are available for students in grades 3 through 8 and high school.
Thank you, Deirdre. Okay. Well, right now you've answered all the questions. So
there's one more question, Michelle. Someone has asked,
okay,
when you archive the webinars, can you please include the Q&A? Absolutely. So as part of this process, we will transcribe our presentation and we will include that information and the URL both on the web portal as well as in the library professional materials on ctcorestandards.org.
Okay. Oh, and where do I find the recorded webinars specifically? You want to give the website address?
It will take approximately 1 week for us to complete the transcription and upload, but we expect to post these recorded webinars on the CT portal website as well as on ctcorestandards.org under the Library of Professional Materials. We will send you an email to alert you to the posting of these recorded webinars as well. So look out for a message from our office.
And this is probably a good point to also, if you are not a subscriber of the Student Assessment News, it's a good time to go to the portal and sign up, or to go to our website and sign up using one of the posted Student Assessment News. We always put in announcements like this about webinars and about postings of materials related to the Smarter Balance Interim and Summative, as well as all of the assessments that we conduct within Connecticut.
Thank you so much for your participation in today's webinar. Have a great afternoon and a successful school year, and we look forward to hearing from you.